Today it is all about decimals. Specifically, you're going to learn how to add, subtract, and multiply decimals. But really, what is a decimal? Well, I want you to think of a number line. And usually on the number line, we see all the whole numbers. So 0, 1, 2, and there's just a space between those numbers. That space is where the magic of numbers really happen, because there are an infinite number of numbers between 0 and 1. We just can't see them. And those numbers are what we call decimals. So I want you to think, if you take that space between 0 and 1 and you divide it into 10 equal sections, that becomes the decimal that are our tenths decimals. So I see 1/10, 2/10, 3/10, and I can see that the tenth section are much smaller pieces of the number line than my whole number sections. But it doesn't stop there, because I can take that distance between 0 and 1/10 and cut it into 10 more sections. And if you see these tiny little tick marks, you'll see I have 10 tick marks. That becomes our hundredths. So our decimals are really just taking our number line and separating them down into equal sized sections that are very, very tiny. When I go to add and subtract decimals, I need to make sure that I only add pieces of the number line that are exactly the same size. So I can only add whole numbers with whole numbers. I can only add tenths with tenths. I can only add hundredths with hundredths because they're the same size pieces. So when I go and I start to add decimals, the key piece here is you have to add your ones place with your ones place, your tenths place with your tenths place, and your hundredths place with your hundredths place, and so on. Now, the easiest way to do that is just line your decimal point up, because that will automatically make sure that all the same size pieces are added. So if you see here, I have 2 57/100ths plus 7 706 thousandths. Well, I'm going to go and I'm going to start and I'm going to write 2 57/100ths, and I've got my decimal point right there. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to go down and I'm going to put my decimal point right below it. Now I see that 7 is to the left of the decimal point, and I'm going to put that right under the 2, and that means my ones place is added to my ones place. Now my 706 thousandths, I can just write out to the right of the decimal point, and I'm guaranteed I've got correct size pieces being added to the same size pieces. Now notice I have a problem here because there's no number there. So what I do is I do something called annexing a 0. And I can just add a 0 there to make sure I have all the same number of digits that I'm going to be adding. Now that's where the hard part is all finished. Now we just simply add. And I'm going to start on the right hand side like I always do, and I'm just going to add. So 0 plus 6 is 6, 7 plus 0 is 7, 5 plus 7 is 12. I'm going to carry that 1. 7 plus 2 is 9, plus 1 is 10. So 2 57/100ths plus 7 706 thousandths is 10 276 thousandths. Pretty simple. Now subtraction is the same thing. We have to make sure that we're subtracting the same size pieces. So once again, the key for me, line up my decimal point. Once I do that, then all my same size pieces will automatically be in line with each other for me to subtract. So if I have 46 91/100ths minus 28 7/10ths, I line up those decimal points, and notice I just bring that decimal point down into the answer. Now I look to see, do I have the same number of digits? I have 2 digits to the right of the decimal point here, but I only have 1 there. So what am I going to do? I'm going to annex the 0. Now I can just subtract. And again, you're going to start on the furthest right side. 1 minus 0 is 1. 9 minus 7 is 2. 6 minus 8, uh-oh, I don't have enough. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to borrow and bring that over. So that's now 16 minus 8 is 8. 3 minus 2 is 1. So 46 and 91 hundredths minus 28 and 7 tenths is 18 and 21 hundredths. All I had to remember is line up that decimal point. So that takes us to our last type of operation we're going to do with decimals, and that's going to be multiplying decimals. Multiplication is slightly different. So when we go to multiply decimals, we do not have to worry about lining up the decimal point. We're just going to start by multiplying. So I've got 17 hundredths times 4 tenths. Notice my decimal point is here and my decimal point is here. They are not lined up. Perfectly fine. We're going to forget the decimal point. We're just going to multiply. 4 times 7 is 28. 4 times 1 is 4, plus 2 is 6. 4 times 0 is 0. This is where we're going to go put our decimal point in. I'm going to go back into the original problem, and I'm going to count all the digits that are to the right of the decimal point. So here's my decimal point. I have a 1 to the right. I have a 7 to the right. Now I go down into the other number, and I have a 4 to the right of the decimal point. And I circle them so it's really easy for me to see. And you're going to count those circles. I have 1, 2, 3 digits to the right of the decimal point. So you're going to go down into your answer, and you're going to start right here. And if you think about putting your decimal point there, now we're going to move it backwards to the left, the same number of digits that I circled. So here I moved that decimal point back 1 place to the left, 2 places to the left, 3 places to the left. And once I've moved it the same number of digits that I circled, all I have to do is put my decimal point there. Now, I like to put a 0 in the ones place, and then we can see that our answer is 68 thousandths. So I think that's about all we need to focus on for today. I think it's your turn now. Good luck. I hope you have some fun with math.